Okay, for you fifth graders who are about to do your shapes and space project, or for anybody who wants to know what one-point perspective is, one-point perspective is basically the simplest version of perspective. Perspective, first of all, is whenever something that's farther away appears smaller, okay? So it's less evident inside the classroom, more like if you're walking down a street and you can see how the street sort of looks narrower as it gets farther away, or if you're looking at railroad tracks and the railroad tracks get closer together, or even if you go out into the hallway of the school, you can see that the lockers appear to get smaller along the sides, that the ceiling tiles appear to get smaller as they go farther away. So basically, in drawing one-point perspective, what we're doing is we're going to start with the flat front of a shape, so like a flat, regular square, regular circle, things like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to see the edge of that shape kind of get smaller as it goes towards a center vanishing point, okay? Your vanishing point is very important. That point is where parallels converge, which means meet or come together, okay? So let me draw in a few simple examples of shapes. First of all, I'm going to do a square. A square is kind of like the most basic one and always the one that I start with. I also like to do a circle kind of at this time. I can do a triangle just to make sure that we're kind of on the same page with all three of those. And those are really simple. After I do the really simple ones, I'm going to do a little bit more complicated ones, okay? So the first rule with perspective is you start with, obviously, a flat 2D shape. So right now it doesn't look three-dimensional, but we're going to make it look three-dimensional, okay? All right, so the first step is I have to connect all of my corners to the vanishing point, all right? The only corner that I will not connect is any corner that would draw inside of the shape, okay? I am not going to do see-through shapes or transparent shapes. If you wanted to do a transparent shape, you would need to connect all corners and it would complicate things quite a bit. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to connect the bottom two and the top right one, okay? All right, so I'm going to line up with my vanishing point. Draw a nice straight line connecting. Line up here, connect. Line up here, connect, okay? So you can see that all of these corners with the ruler connect straight to that vanishing point. They're all perfectly straight lines. You need to use a ruler when doing perspective. It's like your most important tool, okay? All right. Now, after you connect all the corners of the vanishing point, your next step is to add parallel lines, all right? So does anybody know what parallel line is? Hopefully you do by this stage. But anyway, let me explain it just in case as a review, okay? But parallel means this. I'm going to write the word parallel. You see these double L's in parallel? Well, if you take those double L's and you turn them into lines, they are an example of parallel lines. Parallel lines run side by side forever and they never ever touch, okay? So they would never like intersect, all right? So what I'm going to do, let me grab a different color really quickly. I'm going to draw a parallel line for this edge right here and a parallel line for this edge right here, okay? And I'm going to draw them further down. You'll notice that they will look a little bit shorter, okay, because they're going to be in a smaller area. So I'm first going to draw a vertical line. That's going to be my vertical for this side. And it's basically within those same lines. So it's kind of within the same border. It just looks smaller because it's getting closer to the vanishing point. Now, where I left off with this parallel line, I'm going to do my one for the bottom, which is going to be a perfect horizontal. So right where I left off with that last one at the corner, I'm going to draw in my horizontal line, okay? So that would be a completed square in one-point perspective. You could get rid of your excess a little bit, and there you have it. That's what it's supposed to look like, okay? Now, a circle is actually a little bit easier, but it can be more confusing. Because you know how in the first one I said connect all the corners? Well, circles don't have any corners, all right? So what you're going to do in a circle is you're just going to do the widest edge. So basically, I'm going to revolve my ruler like the hands of a clock, okay? Until I'm touching like the widest edge of my circle. And I'm just going to connect the widest edge to the vanishing point, okay? I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to revolve my ruler around until I hit the widest edge. Let me make sure I'm lined up, and then I'm going to connect that guy down to the vanishing point, all right? Now, when you go to do your parallel, I'm not going to use my ruler to do a parallel this time, right? The reason is because my parallel is now curved, so I have to draw in a curving line, okay? So basically my circle is done. You can see it's a little bit simpler because I only have to draw two lines, and then, I hand draw out my parallel. So that is my circle in one-point perspective. Okay. Now for the triangle. I'm going to start by connecting corners. Right now I'm not really certain if I will be able to connect this corner. It might draw through the shape, it might not. Right now I'm thinking, no, I don't need to draw it in. So if I line up to that top point, it would actually draw through my image just a little bit, so I'm not going to connect that top one. So then I only have one parallel line to do. It's going to be a perfect horizontal like that guy. I'm going to draw it in right there, and the triangle is done as well, okay? Now those shapes are fairly easy. If you're going to do shapes for your project like letters, ooh, things become a lot more complicated, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw in a few letters, and I'm going to transform them into block letters, all right? The easiest way to make a block letter is to start with just a letter, okay? So like I'm going to make a block letter S. A block letter an S could be like one of the hardest block letters to draw. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do an outline around this S, okay? The edges are going to be very square, kind of like a rectangle, okay? So I'm going to do one that goes kind of over the S and one that goes under the S, all right? At this point, what I could do is I could go in and erase the original line that I drew, and the result is a perfect block letter S. Maybe not perfect, but it's pretty close, okay? Let me draw in a couple more of those and then we'll connect them, okay? The S has a lot of curves. I'm gonna draw one that doesn't have any curves. So this next one, I'm gonna draw in like a block letter T, okay? So I start with a regular T. I can do a flat line on all these points, and then basically I just connect them to do an outline completely around, oh, that was kind of a bad line, completely around that letter T, okay? Then I could go in, I could erase my T on the inside. I'm left with a really nice block letter T, okay? Maybe I'll do one more. Let's see. You know what, I really don't like doing them on the bottom, so I'm actually gonna erase these guys and do one more up here. I'm gonna do a B. I'm gonna do a block letter B. And let me draw my shape around it. So I'm just gonna outline the B, okay? Start with an outline. I'm gonna do my little shapes on the inside, which any ones that would need shapes on the inside would be like a letter A, a letter R, an O, okay? So those ones, don't forget about doing your shape on the inside. All right, now what we're going to do is I'm gonna connect these guys to my vanishing point, okay? Remember to connect corners, or if you have a round area, which I have a round area in this one and a round area in this one, I'm gonna connect the widest edge, okay? All right, on my letter T, it's mostly just corners, so I'm gonna start there. It's kind of easy, all right? So basically, in order to understand what corners I need to be connecting, I'm just gonna connect every single corner, and then if I line up with one and I'm like, oh, nope, can't draw that one, it would draw through the inside of my T, well then I'm not gonna draw that one in, okay? That might be the end of the line for me. I don't know that I need to connect anymore. I think that's really it. That's it, okay? So drawing my first couple parallels is gonna be easy. Drawing the big one on the side is gonna be a little bit more difficult. This first guy is gonna be a horizontal. Why? Because the top of my T is also a horizontal, okay? So I'm gonna do a horizontal line. Stop when I hit that line there. This next guy is vertical. So my next parallel is gonna be a vertical, connecting at the corner, okay? All right, now this next one, you're like, oh, it's a vertical. I'll just draw another vertical connecting at the corner. Let me draw that in and show you how that doesn't look quite right. Right? That doesn't look right, because like this edge jumps out farther than this edge, so this guy should be in a little bit more, right? That's exactly right. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna measure the distance from here to here, which let's say that's like, on mine maybe 5-6 inches. Yours is probably smaller because you're working on smaller paper. So I'm just gonna go out about 5 or 6 inches from that one. Just gonna kind of guess and then do a vertical line right there. Okay, so now there we have the T, okay? Does that make sense? So basically the space between here and here should be equal to the space between here and here. And you can actually measure it out if you're someone who's like, you know, really particular and you want that to look right. By the way, I'm gonna do like a quick erasing on this so you guys can kind of still see my lines, because then you'll see what happened and how that T was created, okay? All right, now we're gonna do the S, and the S has a lot of curves, so this is gonna get kind of crazy, okay? I'm going to start off by connecting just the widest edges. Like I'm acting almost like as if this was a circle. So I'm going to start with the bottom edge, kind of revolving my ruler down all the way to the bottom. I'm going to go all the way to the top, connect the widest edges, okay? Now, it looks like I'm missing some details, right? Like it doesn't have everything the S needs to have. So I'm like, what can I do? I see some corners in the middle here, so I'm going to connect those corners. So on some shapes, you're going to have curves and corners, all right? And on the curves and corners, you're going to need to connect all the ones you can. Now this little guy out here, here's a tricky one, because this one I can connect to the vanishing point, but I just stop when I hit my S. I don't keep drawing through the S. Does that make sense? So this little guy I can draw for a little while, but then I get stopped right there, okay? All right, now I'm going to add in my parallels. This first guy is kind of on a diagonal. See this guy right here going on a diagonal? So I'm going to go out here and try to mimic that diagonal. Draw that guy in. And then this bottom one kind of has like a little bit of a curve to it, so I'm going to try and mimic that curve out there, okay? Now, this line is higher up, so what that's going to do is it's going to kind of bring it in just a little bit, okay? So I'm going to mimic like the back of this S, which really has like a beautiful curve to it, okay? So it's basically going to look like that. And this bottom part's kind of overlapped, so I won't need to do that area, okay? This one is also overlapped. It kind of travels behind the S, so I won't need to do anything there. All right, and there's your black letter S, okay? Yeah, that's it. That's all you need to do, all right? Next one we're going to do is the black letter B. I'm going to start by connecting either corners or widest areas. Just go ahead and do it at however that's easiest. I'm going to connect the widest area on the curved end. On the geometric kind of pointy end, I'm going to connect the corners. I think I can actually connect this corner. I erased a little bit of that line up there. If I was going the opposite direction, like let's say I was going this way, I would actually need to draw a line on the inside of my B, but since my vanishing point's on this side, I don't need to draw anything in there. One more line I might need to draw is from the bottom of that top curve. Yeah, and I do. But again, that's going to be one of those lines where I stop when I hit the letter B. I don't go through it, okay? So on the bottom, I'm going to draw in my parallel that kind of curves up and to the right. And on the side, I'm going to do my vertical over here. Now, since I hand drew that B, it's not a perfect vertical, but you get the idea, okay? And then I'll erase these lines. Okay, and that's basically all you need to know about drawing shapes in one-point perspective, whether they be easy shapes or difficult shapes. Hopefully you can figure it out.